4 days after my granddad Ed's funeral, my phone rang at 7:12 in the morning, and I knew before I even picked up. It wasn't a sympathy call. It was Gareth Hanley, Ed's attorney. He said, "I need you at my office this morning for the reading of the will. There are unexpected instructions." His pause told me more than the words did. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. My name's Daw. I'm 58 years old, and I live in Springfield, Missouri. Ed raised me after my parents died in a car wreck when I was 12, so, yeah, my chest was still tight. Week of casseroles, handshakes, and people saying things they didn't mean. Maris rolled over beside me, squinting at the phone light like it had personally offended her. "Who is it?" she asked, but her tone wasn't concern. It was that low buzz people get when a storm's about to break in their favor. I told her it was the attorney. Her eyes went wide in a way that had nothing to do with grief, more like someone spotting a $100 bill on the sidewalk. She sat up like we were late for something. On the drive, I kept telling myself I'd probably get the usual, a pocket watch, maybe a couple of Ed's old tools, something from the shop that had a story to it. Honestly, I even half hoped for his battered recliner, just to feel like I was keeping a piece of him. But then I remembered how Ed used to watch Maris at family dinners. Not rude, not cold, just quiet. Like he was reading a blueprint nobody else could see. Hanley's office sat in one of those squat brick buildings off Glenstone Avenue, the kind that hadn't changed since the 80s. Inside smelled like paper, lemon wood polish, and decisions that took their time. When Hanley came out, he was careful with his voice. Too careful. His fingers tapped once on the manila folder he was holding. He gave me a half nod, like he wasn't sure how this was going to land. That's when the thump hit me, low in the stomach, like a bass line you don't hear so much as feel. I sat down across from him, the leather chair creaking under me, and before he even opened the folder, I knew. This wasn't just money. This was about what Ed saw coming, what he saw in her, and I had no idea how far ahead he'd actually planned. I set the folder down on Hanley's desk because my hands had gone clammy just holding it. He cleared his throat like he was about to read the back of a cereal box. No emotion, just business. "Ed left you the house," he started, flipping through the documents like they were grocery receipts. "The restoration workshop, the 3-unit rental strip behind it, and the investment accounts. Current total valuation is roughly $2.85 million. I let out a small laugh, just once. It came out dry, like I'd choked on dust. I was about to say something dumb like, "You're joking," but then I saw Hanley's face, flat as stone. No grin, no raised eyebrow. That's when my stomach knotted. I sat back in the chair, blinking at the number like it had teeth. "What about other family? Cousins, nephews, that side crowd from Tulsa?" "Mr. Langston," Hanley said, voice even. "Ed was very specific. Everything goes to you. No splits, no carve-outs." My ears buzzed. Not from the money. I mean, I'd grown up in a house where we stretched leftovers and never financed anything. But from the weight of it. I looked down at the folder again, like it might start talking. Hanley reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope with Ed's handwriting on the front. My name. No dear, no son, just Daw in all caps, like he'd written it standing up. "He asked that you read this alone," Hanley said. "Take your time with it." I didn't even wait to get to the car. I opened the letter in the hallway outside his office, leaning against the wood-paneled wall like someone who just got hit in the chest. Ed's handwriting wasn't fancy, blocky, slanted, legible, the kind of writing you saw on shop labels. "You get this because you don't treat people like a price tag. I've watched you over the years. How you talk to people, how you listen. You build things, not just fix them." That part warmed my throat. But the next line, that one dropped like a brick in my gut. "Watch Maris. She uses we when she means me, and she circles money like it's a sport she wants to win." I stood there for maybe a full minute, eyes locked on that sentence. Then I folded the letter slowly, like it might snap if I rushed. Back inside, Hanley added one more thing, casual, like he was just tying up loose ends. "Your grandfather did full cognitive testing last November. Clean results. No signs of impairment. We had it documented in case anyone questions the decisions." Smart. That was so Ed. Quiet, but always 3 steps ahead. The drive home felt like I was hauling something fragile in the front seat. I kept glancing over at the folder, expecting it to vanish, like this was all some trick of grief. When I walked into the house, Maris was already set up at the kitchen island. Laptop open, notepad next to her, pen tapping like we had a 9 o'clock strategy meeting. She looked up with that careful voice she used when she didn't want to sound too eager. So, what did he leave us? I didn't answer fast enough. And that pause, I'd regret it more than anything. I stood there a second too long, and Maris took it as an opening. He left it all to me, I said, flat, just trying to get it over with. She blinked once, and the fake grief slid off her like a cheap jacket. All of it? She asked, like she couldn't believe her luck. Then her whole posture changed. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes already scanning a future that didn't involve me as much as it involved spending. We should pay off the mortgage right away, she said, flipping her notebook open. Then clean up the shop. You know how much junk's in there. Some of that slow inventory? Gone. And the rentals? We could refinance while rates are still decent. Oh, and Kip knows a guy who manages high-yield investments. We should sit down with him next week. She paused, like waiting for applause. Can we slow down? I said. I just buried the man. She didn't blink. Don't be emotional. This is grown-up money. It needs grown-up moves. That line hit harder than she knew. Or maybe she did know. With Maris, the knife always came disguised as advice. That night, she went into performance mode. My favorite ribs, warm cornbread, even put on that faded tee she knew I liked. After dinner, she rubbed my shoulders and started whispering about starting fresh and finally living how we should. Then, like a trap closing, she said, "You trust me, right?" It wasn't a question, it was a test. I didn't answer, I just nodded and let her keep talking. See, when Maris talked fast, it meant she was hiding the important part, the part she didn't want me to ask about. And I'd learned the hard way. Let her talk long enough, and she'd give herself away. At work the next morning, Twyla, my assistant at the college, caught me staring at my monitor without typing a word. She set her coffee down and tilted her head. "Everything okay at home?" she asked. "Just been a long week," I said. "Lot going on with the estate." She nodded slow. "You know what I think about money?" I shrugged. "Tell me." "It doesn't change people, just gives them more room to be themselves." That line followed me back home. Over the next few days, I noticed Maris started controlling the calendar. I'd see appointments in my phone I never added, meetings with bank reps, calls with Kip, even a walkthrough at the rental strip. She acted like my time was community property now. She printed out routine paperwork for me to sign, always sliding them over with a kiss on the cheek or a hand on my arm. If I paused to read, she'd say, "It's just standard stuff, Daw. Don't overthink it." Kip's name kept coming up too much. He knows buyers. He says your granddad's antique gear isn't worth what it used to be. He can help us sell smart. Us. I found Ed's letter again in my top drawer. This time I read it slower, and I saw the line I missed before, clear as day. If she starts talking pressure, protect yourself. Storms don't come out of nowhere. That one punched me square in the ribs. I called Hanley later that night and kept it simple. "Hey, did Ed add any special conditions in the will?" He went quiet for a moment, just air and hesitation. Then he said, "You might want to come in." I drove back to Hanley's office the next morning, and this time he didn't waste air on small talk. "There's a codicil," he said, sliding a separate document across the desk. "Your grandfather added it last winter. If a spouse attempts to force asset transfers or challenges the will through intimidation, a defined portion of the estate automatically routes into a protective fund." I read that twice. "So if someone pushes," I said slowly, "they trigger a financial wall." "That's one way to put it," Hanley replied. "Ed wanted safeguards." That's when the fog lifted. This wasn't paranoia. This was a man who had watched, listened, and left me a map. I didn't go home and argue. I went looking for backup. Judith Caro's office sat downtown above a hardware store. She had a reputation for smiling politely while dismantling your entire strategy. I liked that about her. I paid her retainer from an account Maris didn't monitor and told Judith everything except my pride. She listened without interrupting, then folded her hands. "Don't accuse," she said. "Document." She handed me a checklist that felt like body armor. Bank statements, credit reports, property records, phone logs, text messages, anything time-stamped and ugly. That night, I ran my credit report. I remember sitting at the desk in the spare bedroom, the glow of the screen making everything look colder. I scrolled once, then again, and there it was. A personal loan for $38,400, opened about 5 months earlier. My mouth went dry. I never applied for it, never signed anything, but my name sat there clean and bold like I had. Judith moved fast. Within days she had the lender packet, online application, digital signature, timestamps, IP logs. Maris had used an old scanned copy of my driver's license. She submitted it through an online portal while I was at work teaching a budgeting seminar, which almost felt like a joke the universe was playing on me. Looking back, it explained that strange calm she had that month. I'd been stressing over bills, and she kept telling me to relax, that things were lining up. She wasn't calm. She was counting down. I started exporting everything: statements, transaction histories, screenshots of text messages where she mentioned moving money around. Judith set up a secure folder and told me, if it's not saved, it didn't happen. One afternoon, while trying to find a charger, I opened Maris's tablet by mistake. It was already unlocked. A voice memo app sat open. I shouldn't have listened. I did anyway. It was her voice, rehearsed and sharp, like she was pitching investors. Legacy assets move best when the owner is emotional, she said in one recording. Liquidate fast before they rethink it. I didn't slam the tablet down. I didn't storm into the kitchen. I just forwarded the files to Judith and cleared my face before walking back into the room. I didn't confront her. I kept collecting. Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed while I was in my office. Sunday, family dinner, private room at Grady's Diner, 3 p.m., don't be late. That was the whole message. Maris never used that tone unless it was a command. No heart emoji, no please, just an order dressed up as hospitality. Sunday came in gray and cold, the kind of Missouri day that felt unfinished. Before heading to the diner, I stopped at the cemetery. I stood over Ed's grave with my hands in my coat pockets and let the wind hit my face. I needed 5 quiet minutes where nobody was selling me anything or smiling too hard. I see it, I muttered under my breath. I'm not blind. Then I got back in the truck and drove. Grady's Diner sat off Sunshine Street, chrome trim, neon sign buzzing like it had since the 90s. I pulled into the lot and spotted Nadine's beige sedan right away. Elliot's dented blue pickup sat 2 spots down. And then there were 2 vehicles I didn't recognize. Black, polished, expensive enough to announce themselves. Client cars. Inside, the hostess didn't even ask my name. Private room in the back, she said, already stepping aside. The door was closed. I could hear low voices through it, steady and confident. When I walked in, it wasn't dinner, no menus, no coffee. The long table was covered in folders, legal pads, and 2 leather briefcases. Maris sat at the head like she was chairing a board meeting. She smiled, too bright. You made it? 2 men in suits stood when I entered. One had slicked back hair and a smile that showed a little too much tooth. Daw, this is Ronan Price and Silas Mercer, Maris said smoothly. They handle marital trusts and estate structuring. Ronan extended a hand. His grip was firm but rehearsed. We specialize in protecting family wealth, he said. Congratulations on your inheritance. Silas didn't smile. He just watched. Nadine leaned forward, hands folded like she was at church. We only want what's best for the family, she said softly, eyes careful not to land on anything specific. Elliot kept staring at the table, jaw tight. He looked like a guy who'd been told to show up and keep quiet. Ronan slid a stack of papers toward me. This is straightforward. Transfer the inherited assets into a marital trust. Your wife would serve as managing trustee for efficiency and tax positioning. It streamlines everything. For efficiency, Maris echoed. I flipped the first page without sitting down. Trustee authority, discretionary liquidation rights, asset management control. It read like a polite takeover. Maris leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume. Her voice dropped low. Don't embarrass me. Sign it and we're fine. No sweetness, no soft edges, just a cold instruction. Ronan jumped back in, voice smooth as oil. There's a limited window for optimal structuring. Market timing matters. Acting today would be in your best interest. Silas finally spoke, calm and measured. Delays create exposure. I looked at Elliot. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. I'd like to review this with my own counsel, I said evenly. Ronan smiled wider. Of course, but there's no need to complicate things. I'm licensed and in good standing. This is standard. He added that last line unprompted, like that alone should shut me up. That's when I smiled, slow, calm, steady. Funny thing, I said, stepping back toward the door. I brought someone too. I reached for the handle and pulled it open. Judith Carroll walked in like she'd paid for the room. Gray pantsuit, low heels, no purse, just a thin folder in one hand and an expression like she was already bored. She gave a small nod to the room. Good afternoon, she said like we were here for a baby shower. Ronan Price stiffened immediately. Silas Mercer looked down at his lap, then back up, scanning her fast, like he'd seen her type before and knew exactly what was about to happen. Maris's eyes darted to mine, but I didn't look at her. When I'd forwarded her family dinner text to Judith 3 days earlier, she didn't waste time. Within an hour, she'd pulled both Ronan and Silas through a background search. She flagged it immediately. Marital trust attorneys holding meetings in diners doesn't line up. She printed everything and brought it in a tidy little folder, just in case things got pushy. Ronan recovered first. He gave a tight smile and said, "I think this is all a bit dramatic, Mr. Langston. You didn't need to bring outside counsel. This is a family conversation." Judith didn't even blink. She slid her chair out slowly and sat at the end of the table like it had been waiting for her. "Since you're calling yourself counsel," she said, calm and casual, "what's your state bar number?" That's how she said it, like she was ordering a sandwich. Ronan hesitated for just a beat too long. Then he gave a number. Smooth voice, steady tone. Judith didn't argue. She reached into her folder, pulled out a page, and slid it across the table to him. "State bar lookup says your license is inactive," she said. "Administrative suspension, not fully reinstated." Silas's hand moved fast, zipping his leather bag and sliding papers inside like the building was on fire. That was my confirmation. He was the brains. Ronan was the face. Maris leaned forward, voice suddenly sharp. "Daw, you're confused. You're not thinking clearly. You've always been bad with money." Judith kept her voice level. "Mr. Langston has a clean record and no cognitive red flags. Per certified documentation. What he does have is proof of identity fraud." She laid out the lender packet like she was showing a menu. Page after page, loan confirmation times, login trail tied to Maris's email and mobile, access logs, and a digital signature that didn't match mine by a mile. Nadine's mouth pinched tight. She looked sideways at Maris like she was seeing her through a new lens. She didn't say a word, but her whole face changed. Judith flipped to one more sheet. "This is from your wife's tablet," she said. "Saved note. Practiced phrasing for coercion scenarios." She read it aloud. "Once he's emotional, he'll sign just to make it stop." That one sucked the air out of the room. Elliot finally looked up. "This isn't how Daw does things," he said, voice cracking halfway through. Maris whipped her head toward him. "Shut up, Elliot," she hissed. No performance this time, just the real version, bare and mean. Judith straightened her papers. "Everyone in this room should understand. Coercion related to inheritance decisions can shift into criminal territory very quickly." She paused, then looked at Maris. "And under the codicil," Mr. Langston's grandfather added, "any documented attempt at spousal pressure triggers automatic funding into a protected trust, one that's outside your reach." Maris didn't say a word, but her eyes flashed hard like she'd just stepped on a landmine she thought she planted. "Ed didn't just leave money. He left a tripwire. I walked out of that diner alone, but it felt like dragging my insides behind me. My body was upright, but everything else felt cracked. Even when you win, sometimes it still feels like your life got gutted in front of an audience." That night, Maris lit up my phone like it owed her rent. First, it was half-sobbed apologies full of, "You caught me off guard," and "I just wanted us to be secure." Then came the fury, how I embarrassed her, how I let strangers humiliate family. And then silence. Cold, calm, practiced. Her last message landed like a nail in the spine. "You can still fix this. If not, I'll ruin you, completely." 2 days later, my dean at the college knocked on my office door. She gave me the polite version. "Just checking in, Daw. Someone sent an anonymous email to the board about you. Said you're showing signs of instability and may not be safe managing grant funds." She didn't say it like she believed it, but the words still scraped. I told Judith that same day, and she went straight into gear. Within 24 hours, she'd pulled the full routing info from the email headers. IP address, login chain, and device ID all matched a terminal inside the building where Maris worked. Her user credentials had been signed in. Same week, Twyla stopped me in the break room, holding her coffee without sipping it. "I saw Maris," she said, "last week, sitting in her car across the parking lot. She was just staring at the front entrance like she was tracking who came and went." I believed her. By that point, it didn't even shock me. Then came the account freeze attempt. Maris tried to lock our joint checking account by flagging it for suspicious activity. Only reason I caught it in time was because Judith had me set up a new private account the week before. I moved my paycheck and the estate distributions over just in time, and then she made Otis the next battlefield. She cornered me in the kitchen one night and said, with zero shame, "Otis is mine. I paid for his crate and his vet visits. And you're unstable. You shouldn't be alone with a dog." It was one of the lowest swings I'd ever seen her take, not because of the words, because she knew that dog had been sleeping on my side of the bed since the day we brought him home. A few nights later, my phone buzzed at 10:30. It was Elliot. His voice was shaky, like he'd already been crying. "I didn't know it would go that far," he said. "I thought it was just paperwork pressure, not identity theft, not fake attorneys." I didn't interrupt, I just let him talk. He told me there was a group chat, him, Maris, Nadine, and one of Maris's co-workers. They planned the whole diner ambush step by step, names, timing, language. There was even a line from Maris that made my skin crawl. "If Doss stalls, we corner him." After we hung up, I wrote everything down, word for word with the timestamp. Judith's rule echoed in my head. Memory fades, notes don't. I packed 2 bags, one for me, one for Otis. Clothes, meds, laptop, hard copy backups of the estate papers. I emptied a drawer of folders, zipped them into my work satchel, and grabbed Otis's food and leash. I left before Maris could get home and spin it into a screaming match I wouldn't win. I rented a studio from a retired woman named Daleen Kessler. Strict rules, quiet hours, clean kitchen. She didn't ask questions once she saw my credit score and work badge. The silence there wasn't empty, it was a break. I could finally hear my own thinking again. Maris kicked off with love bombing, flowers at my office, voicemails that sounded like someone else had written them. She said she missed me, loved me, wanted to reset everything. Then the shift came. Her next voicemail was sharp and cold. "If you don't come back and sign the trust," she said, "I'll make sure you lose that shop. You think I can't? I can move things. I can make calls before you even notice." That's when Judith filed the divorce paperwork. Clean, precise, filed by noon the next day. She also submitted a fraud report on the loan and a separate identity lockdown order, so Maris couldn't open another account in my name while we untangled the first one. A week later, Judith dropped a printed letter in front of me with a single sentence underlined. "Authorization confirmed via user data from Maris Langston's device and contact credentials. Access trail does not match Daw Langston." The lender had no idea what they'd just handed us, but I did. It was the nail. Nadine tried to call a few days later. I almost let it go to voicemail, but picked up. "It's all been a misunderstanding," she said in that tired, tragic tone she used when she wanted to be the victim without sounding like one. "You should be practical, Daw. You know how these things go." Not once did she say the words Maris should apologize. Not once. Then Kip Vance started circling. He popped into the shop while I was at the college. Said he was just looking around. Asked one of the younger techs what the antique vice grip set was worth quick. Same guy tried to price out Ed's cast iron drill press and ask about liquidation options. The kicker was a call from Rosa, one of Ed's longtime tenants behind the shop. "Some guy came by," she said. "Wanted into the back storage. Said he was a buyer. Said you'd be fine with it." I wasn't. That same night, I rekeyed the locks, changed all the exterior codes, had cameras installed inside and out, synced to my phone. No more guessing, no more letting it slide. For the first time in weeks, I fell asleep without checking over my shoulder, and Otis snored like it was the best nap of his life. I sat across the table from Judith and Hanley and told them what I wanted, plain and simple. "Nobody touches a cent unless I sign off," I said. "No loopholes, no handshake agreements, no trust language, just hard locks." Judith nodded once, already flipping through her binder. "We'll restructure so the estate's legally sealed unless you authorize movement. That way it's not up for interpretation." Hanley added, "The codicil is already active. Because of the spousal pressure, a pre-marked portion is now legally protected." He looked at me carefully. "Ed built that clause for exactly what happened. That part hit different. Not heavy, just clear. Ed didn't leave a warning. He left a defense system. I didn't fight the codicil. I leaned into it. I carved out the protected portion and shaped it into something real, something Ed would have nodded at without saying a word. I called it the Foundation for Financial Clarity. Quiet name, solid purpose. The kind of thing that didn't need fanfare to do its job. We started with small grants, basic stuff like locks, security cameras, and storage access upgrades. First application came from a woman named Inez. Her ex took out 3 credit cards in her name and left her with over $32,000 in debt. I paid a security contractor to reinforce her entry doors and change all the locks. Then we got her into our first budgeting workshop. I kept the vibe grounded. No suits, no PowerPoints. Because of my job at the college, I knew how fast people tuned out when a workshop got too preachy. So I kept it practical. The sessions were called things like how to read a loan contract and 5 ways to spot a trap before it hits your wallet. I brought in instructors who knew how to talk straight. A retired collections agent, a former bank rep, even a local repo guy who knew all the early warning signs people ignored until it was too late. We held everything in the old break room at the shop. I moved Ed's old recliner to the corner, left the "Do Not Touch" sign on it like a quiet memorial, and set up folding tables around it. Keely came first, then Sandra, then Yvette and Breyer. Each woman had a different version of the same story. Someone used affection as currency and control as the receipt. Otis became the unofficial mascot. He'd sprawl out under the supply table like he'd paid rent, big tail thumping anytime someone opened a snack bag. People relaxed around him in a way they didn't with us. Twyla helped build the intake system. She made sure we didn't get bogged down in red tape. "We're not gatekeepers," she said. "We're just unlocking a different kind of door." Some days I caught myself standing near the back, arms crossed, just listening to the workshop hum around me. That's when I'd hear it, Ed's voice in my head. "Make it matter." And for once, that line didn't feel like pressure. It felt like direction. Judith pulled the group chat during Discovery, the one Elliot told me about. It was worse than I expected. Screenshots, step-by-step timing, a typed-out script for the diner meeting, including roles. One line stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. "Keep Daw off balance. If he hesitates, shift the pressure." They didn't just spring it on me. They rehearsed it. Elliot agreed to give a statement. He looked pale doing it, wringing his hands, chewing the inside of his cheek, but he finally chose truth over blood loyalty. "I was stupid," he said. "I thought we were helping move things along." Judith stayed calm, just thanked him, but I could tell she filed that moment away like a marked receipt. Ronan Price tried to vanish. Phone off, office emptied, LinkedIn profile deleted, but Judith forwarded his suspended license paperwork to the state's attorney general and the bar oversight committee. Suddenly his whole trust and estate side hustle dried up fast. At one point he emailed a vague apology and ended it with, "I'm licensed and in good standing." Nobody asked. He just added it like that alone should clean the slate. Silas Mercer cut his losses and played the neutral card. "I didn't know," he claimed, which is exactly what people say when they knew everything. They just didn't want the fallout. Maris made one last swing on the way down, petitioned the court for partial ownership of the restoration shop. She claimed she'd helped manage operations and coordinate the back end. Judith shredded the claim in 2 pages. No documentation, no payroll, no business filings, no involvement on any record that didn't involve her trying to offload inventory to Kip. The fraudulent loan got flagged by the lender and formally removed from my credit file. The dispute record stayed, though, her name on the access trail, her device, her contact info. She couldn't quietly erase it anymore. One day Nadine called me crying, said Maris had gotten in too deep, that it spun out. But Maris didn't fall into anything. She built it, step by step. The workshop and rentals stayed mine. I kept every staff member on the payroll. Nobody's livelihood was going to crash, just because my marriage did. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated training room inside Ed's old shop. We had 10 people learning how to repair water-damaged drywall with basic tools. Keely showed a new attendee how to patch a corner with mesh tape. Otis was snoring under the main table like he owned the deed. When I locked up that night, lights off, alarm set, I stepped out into the cool air with Otis trotting beside me. The revenge wasn't yelling. It was building a life she couldn't touch, and designing a system that makes people like her eat their own pressure. Hold up. Can I ask you something real quick? If you've got the hype button, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people, then please subscribe and hit like too. It's one click, and it matters a lot. Now tell me in the comments, when someone you love starts using money as a leash, do you tighten up and fight? Or do you walk away and build your own safety net?